Intro music fades in and out. Hello, history enthusiasts, and welcome. Today, we journey back to a time when the world held its breath, when two superpowers clashed not on battlefields, but in the vast, silent arena of space. We're talking about the Cold War, a period of simmering tension, ideological rivalry, and an audacious scientific race that culminated in humanity's most extraordinary achievement, landing on the moon. It was a gamble of epic proportions, a testament to human ingenuity, and a desperate plea for global unity in a fractured world. For a brief, shining moment, the entire planet looked up, captivated by a few brave individuals making history 250,000 miles away. But how did we get there? What were the stakes? And what hidden truths lie beneath the surface of this monumental endeavor? Our story begins not with a giant leap, but with a humble beep. On the 4th of October 1957, the Soviet Union launched Sputnik 1, a small, polished sphere, into Earth orbit. Its simple radio signal, audible to anyone with the right equipment, sent shockwaves across the Western world. It wasn't just a satellite. It was a potent symbol of Soviet technological superiority, proof that they could launch objects into space, and potentially intercontinental ballistic missiles. The United States, accustomed to being at the forefront of innovation, was caught off guard, experiencing what became known as the Sputnik crises. The space race had officially begun. Just a month later, on the 3rd of November 1957, the Soviets upped the ante with Sputnik 2, carrying a living creature, a dog named Laika, into orbit. Then, on the 12th of April 1961, came the ultimate triumph. Yuri Gagarin, a 27-year-old Soviet cosmonaut, became the first human to journey into space aboard Vostok 1. His iconic exclamation, "Poyakali, let's go," echoed across the globe. Gagarin orbited the Earth for 108 minutes, returning a global hero, cementing the Soviet lead in the early stages of the space race. For the US, this was a profound humiliation, a clear sign that they were falling behind in the technological arms race that defined the Cold War. Compelling historical fact number 1. The Soviet Union achieved the first satellite, the first animal in orbit, the first human in space, the first woman in space, and the first spacewalk, consistently outpacing the US in these initial, crucial milestones. America needed a bold response. Just 3 weeks after Gagarin's flight, on the 5th of May 1961, Alan Shepard became the first American in space, albeit on a suborbital flight. But President John F. Kennedy knew that incremental steps wouldn't suffice. On the 25th of May 1961, in a stirring address to a joint session of Congress, he laid down a challenge that would define a generation. "I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal, before this decade is out, of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth." This wasn't just a scientific objective. It was a political masterstroke. Kennedy's challenge was audacious, almost reckless. At the time, the US had barely put a man into suborbital flight, and the technology for a lunar landing simply didn't exist yet. It galvanized a nation, redirecting national energy towards a common, monumental goal, and away from the anxieties of the Cold War. It was a promise to the American people and a direct gauntlet thrown down to the Soviets. The National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, was tasked with making this impossible dream a reality through its Apollo program. What followed was an unprecedented national effort. A colossal undertaking that saw hundreds of thousands of engineers, scientists, and technicians working tirelessly. The sheer scale was staggering. Compelling historical fact number 2. At its peak, the Apollo program employed over 400,000 people across the United States and consumed an astonishing 2.5% of the U.S. federal budget. This was a nation mobilized for science. But the path to the moon was fraught with peril and sacrifice. On the 27th of January 1967, tragedy struck during a launch rehearsal for Apollo 1 at Cape Kennedy, Florida. A flash fire erupted inside the command module, tragically killing astronauts Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger Chaffee. It was a devastating setback, a stark reminder of the immense risks involved. Yet, from this tragedy came crucial safety improvements and a renewed determination. The program was redesigned, and safety protocols were rigorously re-evaluated, ultimately making future missions possible. The technological hurdles were immense. Designing a rocket powerful enough to escape Earth's gravity and carry a complex spacecraft to the moon was a monumental task. The solution was the Saturn V, an engineering marvel standing 111 meters tall, taller than the Elizabeth Tower, home to Big Ben. It was, and remains, the most powerful machine ever successfully launched, generating 3,400 tons of thrust at liftoff. Every component, from the command module to the lunar lander, had to be invented, tested, and perfected. By late 1968, the Apollo program was gaining momentum. Apollo 8, launched on the 21st of December 1968, saw Frank Borman, Jim Lovell, and William Anders become the first humans to orbit the moon. Their broadcast on Christmas Eve, featuring readings from the Book of Genesis, and the iconic Earthrise photograph, showed humanity its home planet as a fragile blue marble in the vast blackness. A powerful image that transcended national boundaries and offered a moment of shared wonder. It was a massive morale boost, proving that humanity could reach the moon and return safely. Then came Apollo 10 in May 1969, a dress rehearsal for the landing. Thomas Stafford and Eugene Cernan descended in the lunar module 2 within 15 kilometers of the moon's surface, testing all procedures except the actual landing. Everything was set for the main event. On the 16th of July 1969, at 9:32 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, Apollo 11 launched from Kennedy Space Center, Florida. Aboard the command module, Columbia, were Commander Neil Armstrong, Lunar Module pilot Buzz Aldrin, and Command Module pilot Michael Collins. Millions watched across the globe, holding their breath as the Saturn V roared to life, shaking the very ground beneath their feet. The journey to the moon took 3 days, a period of anticipation and meticulous preparation. On the 20th of July 1969, the moment of truth arrived. While Michael Collins orbited alone in Columbia, 250,000 miles from home, Armstrong and Aldrin entered the lunar module, Eagle, and began their descent to the moon's surface. It was a nerve-wracking process. As they neared the surface, the onboard guidance computer, surprisingly rudimentary by today's standards, began to flash alarm codes 1201 and 1202. These alarms indicated an overload, a critical problem just moments from landing. Back in Houston, Guidance Officer Steve Bales, a young engineer, made a snap decision. Go. We're go on that alarm. His quick thinking, backed by mission control procedures, prevented an abort and allowed the descent to continue. Compelling historical fact number 3. The Apollo Guidance Computer, AGC, that guided Apollo 11 to the Moon had a clock speed of 2.048 MHz and a mere 2048 words of RAM. Less processing power than a modern microwave oven or a basic calculator. Its robust design and the ingenuity of the flight controllers were pivotal. But the challenges weren't over. The Eagle was heading towards a boulder-strewn crater, a dangerous landing site, with precious seconds ticking away and fuel reserves dwindling. Armstrong took manual control, steering the lunar module past the hazardous terrain. It was a masterclass in piloting under extreme pressure. Finally, at 2017 Coordinated Universal Time, Armstrong's calm voice crackled across the static. "Houston. Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed." The relief in mission control was palpable, erupting into cheers and applause. Humanity had arrived. Several hours later, on the 20th of July 1969, at 2:56 Coordinated Universal Time, which was already the 21st of July in British Summer Time, Neil Armstrong emerged from the Eagle. As he stepped onto the dusty, alien surface, he uttered the immortal words, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." The world watched, mesmerized, as the grainy black and white images were beamed across continents. Buzz Aldrin soon joined him, becoming the second person to walk on the Moon. They planted the American flag, conducted scientific experiments, collected lunar samples, and spoke with President Richard Nixon via a static-filled phone call. Compelling historical fact number 4. Before stepping onto the lunar surface, Buzz Aldrin, a devout Presbyterian, privately performed the first Christian communion on the Moon, using a small kit provided by his church. He read a passage from John chapter 15:5, "I am the vine. You are the branches. He who abides in me, and I in him, bears much fruit, for without me you can do nothing." After just over 2.5 hours on the lunar surface, Armstrong and Aldrin returned to the Eagle. The ascent stage fired, lifting them off the Moon to rendezvous with Michael Collins, who had been patiently orbiting in Columbia, a lone sentinel. The journey back to Earth was successful, culminating in a splashdown in the Pacific Ocean on the 24th of July 1969. The crew, initially quarantined to ensure they hadn't brought back any lunar pathogens, were soon celebrated as heroes. The Moon landing was more than just a technological triumph. It was a profound moment of human unity. For a brief period, the world, often divided by politics and conflict, came together in shared wonder and admiration. It inspired generations, fueled scientific curiosity, and led to countless technological spin-offs. From microelectronics and satellite communication to advanced medical imaging and fire-resistant materials, it proved that with enough will, ingenuity, and resources, humanity could achieve the seemingly impossible. However, it's also worth noting the immense risk involved. Compelling historical fact number 5. President Nixon had a contingency speech prepared in case Armstrong and Aldrin became stranded on the Moon. It began, "Fate has ordained that the men who went to the Moon to explore in peace will rest in peace." Thankfully, it was never needed. The legacy of the Moon landing continues to resonate today. It stands as a testament to what we can achieve when we aim beyond our grasp. While the initial fervor for lunar exploration waned in the subsequent decades, the spirit of Apollo lives on, inspiring new missions to Mars, the pursuit of commercial spaceflight, and the ambitious goals of returning humans to the Moon with programs like Artemis. The small steps taken by two men on a desolate lunar plain truly became a giant leap for all of humankind, reminding us that our greatest adventures often lie just beyond the horizon. And perhaps, that is the most enduring truth of all. Outro music fades in.